we go.
Sorry about that. We finally got to it. Yeah. Thank you so much for joining us on the Shrewsbury Biscuit.
That's no problem. It's nice to be here.
Nice. Thank you. So I'm Alex, and this is Shane. Would you like to introduce yourself to our listeners?
My name's John Anderson, and I'm editor of the Beano.
It's amazing.
It's a shoot. My hair's gone off in the back of my neck.
Literally, like...
I used to love the Beano as a kid. I used to go up religiously every weekend. I used to live in a town called Dorley near Telford. I used to get my pocket money. I used to go up. I used to buy the Beano, and I used to just sit there and thrive off it for about an hour or so, whatever it took, how long it took to read it. So it's a huge honour to speak to you. Thank you so much.
No problem at all. Aye.
Yeah. So have you been here for the 2 days for Comic Salopia?
I came down on Friday because obviously the Dundee editorial team are based up in Dundee.
Yeah.
And Dundee's a long way from anywhere, but especially for Shrewsbury. So I spent most of Friday travelling, and I'll spend most of Monday travelling back.
Oh, bless you. How are you finding the festival? Are you enjoying it?
Yeah, it's really nice. I mean, it's always nice to kind of meet the kids. I think first and foremost, genuinely nice to meet the kids.
I shared a picture on Instagram yesterday of the crowd of people that were outside our door yesterday waiting to go to the Beano talk. It was crazy.
It was mental. It's probably the biggest crowd for one of the talks we've seen in this building so far.
That's amazing.
It's been mental. That corridor right there was rammed.
Yeah.
And that's amazing to see. And so many kids holding their annuals and their comic books. It's really refreshing to see, because when I think of us and comic books and things, I always feel like I'm a 30-year-old that enjoys comic books, and I don't know what it is. I kind of forget that the kids exist sometimes, and it's nice to be refreshed to know that kids are still going out and buying the Beano, because I used to do that.
The next generation, isn't it?
Yeah, the Beano, Desperate Dan, and Garfield. I used to love Garfield as well. They were my go-tos when I was really young. So how long has the Beano been going now? It's been
right.
Classic.
Well, the Beano started in 1938, July 1938. So we had our 80th anniversary last summer.
You're looking good for it then.
Thanks very much. I moisturise.
Yeah. I love it.
So I've only been working on the Beano since 2004.
Wow.
And I started when I started 15 years ago. It was back then I was still kind of just the office junior at opening the mail and making the tea and things like that. And in 2016 I became editor, and so I've been doing it for 3 years now, and it's
enjoying it.
I have an amazing job. There's no getting around that. It's
so refreshing to hear someone that goes, I love it when I go to work. I love what I do, because so many people in dead end jobs and things like that. You're living the dream, man. You're doing what you want to do. This is exactly. When you were younger, did you think, I really want to get into comic books? Yeah?
Well. When I was younger, I wanted to be Chuck Jones and make cartoons of pretty much cartoons that involved like dropping pianos on people's heads and things like that. Which seemed like a great plan when I was kind of 19, but then I kind of found that I wasn't so good at actually drawing the cartoons so much as kind of writing them. So I made this, I would say this natural move, but I made a move into the writing side of it, and it's paid off, because here I am.
So when you're saying you're the office junior and stuff, and did you have your eyes set, like you knew where you were going, like you wanted to go into the editor role? And it's just the commitment that carried you through,
I wouldn't necessarily say that. I think when I started, there was I think 6 members of editorial staff on the Beano, and that was the editor, the deputy editor, and 4 that members of editorial. I've got a sneaking suspicion that I was the youngest person in that office back in 2004. I was the youngest person in that office by a clear 15, maybe even 20 years. Which was quite a change, and I think at that time you don't, because you're so new, you don't really kind of consider that kind of career progression at that point.
Yeah.
But as publishing itself changed really, really dramatically over the last probably from around about 2007 onwards was when it properly changed. Like I think you've essentially got this kind of time before Facebook and YouTube launched, and then the period after Facebook and YouTube launched, and I think there's a clear delineation between the two periods, and I think that the Beano itself really started to change after that kind of 2007 period, and a lot of the people who I'd worked with for very long and were all enormously talented and kind of dedicated people, they all started kind of retiring, because obviously they were a lot older than me, and so I kind of at that point as the staff kind of started to change, we got a new editor in it was Craig Graham, who was the Dandy editor at the time, became Beano editor. And you kind of at that point when Craig's not that much older than I am, you do genuinely think, oh well, your chance has passed now, because we'll have quite a similarity in age, and kind of
he's jumped in now.
Beano editors kind of go on for years and years. And years. So you kind of you make peace with that, but you can never be sure when things are going to change. And I think a few years ago when the company set up Beano Studios, and Craig moved to work for Beano Studios, the opportunity then presented itself just totally unexpectedly. And I'd like to think I've embraced it for the last few years and had
it's
a lot
what
of
you've
fun.
been working for, so I guess you were kind of like, I've waited so long for this, I'm going to make it mine, you know. I always think of, so you've got like things like Asterix, so very quintessentially French, and you've got like the DC Marvel things, very American, and I always consider the Beano and the Dandy very English, very British, so like Scottish is DC Thompson's, you know. Do you think that there's anything about what we do as far as the Beano and Dandy are concerned that kind of influences the rest of the world in the comic book world? You know, is there anything that you think people would take from that?
I think
it's a hard question. I've unpacked.
I think what you said about inspiring kind of kids in particular, is kind of the bit is where its influence is felt. I think you get an enormous amount of creators now whose formative kind of comic experience was through maybe not so much the Dandy now, because it's been a few years since that was going, but certainly through the Beano and their experience of kind of the format and the medium itself more so than the actual content. And I think as well they kind of see. I think when it's because it's kind of aimed at children, you can almost kind of discern this kind of desire to see exactly how it's done, and I think as well because it kind of is aimed at them, that it engenders a feeling that they actually can do it themselves, that it isn't something that's kind of done by people in Los Angeles who kind of have entirely different life experiences, that it is people who were just like them when they were younger, and that there is this chance that you can do this yourself almost.
I first learned to draw my first cartoon face because of Garfield, actually, because he has the very round eyes to join them up, and that's even today, that's how I'll draw a face. So it's definitely left its mark on me. Also, it's good that, you know, there is a comic book for the young people, because I think even like Marvel and DC are starting to do their own sort of younger versions. Like they've got Batmite now, or they've got Spider Ham, or you know they've got these, and you know it's really good to keep things like a progression, you know, because you can't jump straight into reading Spawn or X-Men or something like that. So I think it's great to keep things like that. And is that the progression for Beano? Always going to stay that way? You know, isn't there going to be any changes?
I think the Beano itself actually exists in a constant state of kind of not necessarily reinventing itself, but certainly evolving. And I think it's always done that, despite the fact kind of it has periods where it kind of looks very similar.
Traditional.
Yeah, so it kind of, you'll have like periods where you kind of go like from 1960 to kind of 1985, where you can like virtually kind of take any issue from that period, and it'll kind of look like broadly the same across that whole period. Whereas, but if you kind of take kind of different periods externally to that, and I think you could do it. The pace of change is kind of got incrementally faster. So you can now take a Beano from like 5 or 10 years ago and compare to Beano now, and you kind of go, oh, that's quite a change. And I suspect that'll kind of that changes will come faster from here on in, just because that's the way the world goes.
It is a thought, isn't it? How do you implement like the modern day changes to things like social media? You know, like how you said things were changing, smartphones, video games. How do you implement that into the Beano and keep things fresh?
What I would say is the Beano is kind of responds to the prevailing culture. Very, very much so. Not in a kind of particularly overt way, but certainly it now draws inspiration from the world as it's kind of happening, and especially from kind of kids' experience of that world. I think one of the subtle changes that people generally don't pick up on, but what is kind of clear, particularly kind of more recently, is this kind of change from a very kind of situational kind of comedy, which kind of did it very well for a very long time, to this more kind of character-based kind of comedy. I think when people kind of talk about kind of Dennis the Menace or Minnie the Minx changing, I think that's kind of what they're actually trying to articulate without kind of really kind of taking a very dry kind of analytical approach to it. But I think that's the change that they can sense from when they read it to what it is now. And
do you feel like it's inevitable? It's got to happen, right? Or do you like where it is right now? Do you feel like you need to bring it up to get the kids these days to buy it, or are you happy where it is?
No, I think it's doing really well. It's
the kids outside yesterday definitely showed that, you know.
The sales on strictly objective measures on the sales have been rising now for 5 years.
Really?
So that's just like, that's amazing. It feels like a vindication that we can do what we do and kind of take on board what you're saying about kind of reflecting kind of the change in the modern world and still kind of not only appeal to the people who kind of would have liked Beano anyway, because it just appeals to them, but obviously we're kind of growing that audience at the same time, and I think that's while it's impossible to kind of even predict what's going to happen next, you just like Facebook and YouTube in
you don't know where it's going to go.
You can't kind of plan for what that change is going to be, but I've got no doubt that we will actually respond to it.
If anything, it can be positive, because I mean, like, I guess, can you buy the Beano digitally as well, or is it just...
You can. I mean, we're still very much a print product, and most of our sales will be of the print product, especially subscriptions now. I think that's kind of the massive change. We have like
getting the paper round
subscription base rather than people kind of buying it in the paper shop, but I know we do have a growing constituency of people who are kind of reading it digitally. I think particularly through Readly, which is like Spotify for magazines, where you kind of pay a subscription fee, a monthly subscription fee, and you get access to as many magazines as actually stored on there. I think it still remains quite a small constituency saying that.
But there is, like I said, I mean, when I was younger, I don't know if you were the same, but there was a tradition. It was get my pocket money, like I said, going to a shop, or I know they used to do it in the paper rounds as well, But yeah, that for me, waiting for I don't know, payday or something, and then get my pocket money, like, yes, running up to the shop. Did you used to read it a lot? Yeah. The Bash Street Kids as well. I used to love the Bash Street Kids. All that. It was just a great time to be alive back then.
So we were talking to a chap the other day who wrote for Go Chatters on CBeebies and stuff, and he was saying about the minefield of difficulties when it comes to writing for kids because of the PC and the various different reasons, and everything has to be gone through with a fine-tooth comb, and there's very strict guidelines. Is that the same kind of setup for you with the Beano, or?
Going to be here a while. I wouldn't necessarily say that the strict guidelines, not in the sense of not in the sense of that there isn't a list of commandments where they kind of say, don't do that, don't do that.
It's very slapstick, though, isn't it, the Beano?
Yeah, it obviously it operates on two levels. It obviously on the visual, which is your slapstick humour, which is people falling over and things like that, and the custard pies and all that kind of thing. And you also have kind of, because as I was saying before, as it's become more character based, there is an extra level of humour overlaid upon that. One of our writers, Nigel Octoluni, is very, very good at exploiting that now, and definitely kind of adds that extra layer in. And when I read his scripts now, there's quite often you read the script and you laugh just reading the script.
That's a good sign, I guess.
It's funny. It's funny stuff, and I don't think we can kind of underestimate that. I think we all know that the kind of the world the kids operate in now is very controlled by their parents or just by the prevailing culture and the levels of acceptability and what you can now get away with and do.
Well, kids are a lot more resilient nowadays, aren't they? And they understand more than like when I was a kid. When I was sort of at the age when I was reading the Beano, I was still playing poo sticks on the brook. Do you know what I mean? At the same time, that kind of thing. Whereas kids nowadays are all over YouTube. They're playing Call of Duty. You know. So I guess it's almost. It's like a double-edged sword in my sort of an experienced mind, I guess, is like, although you have kids that are a lot more experienced in life, in loosely, at the same time, you kind of have to be correct in what you're putting out at the same time.
I think if there's a line, I think it's imitable behaviour. If I think. You obviously kind of that's quite a subjective line, and we all kind of put that line slightly differently. But fantasy violence and that, I think, just that kind of fantastical elements is fine. But things that kids could do that they could imitate themselves at home.
Yes,
that's the thing kind of you don't do, and you
can't put a saucepan on a kid's head.
You kind of do. You learn the bits that you kind of think, oh yes, you should do that, because you could actually the kids could copy that, and then you
it's that common sense. And I guess you guys have been doing it that long now. It's kind of like, what do you think? We've been doing this for a while now. We know what we're doing. Yeah. So
it's.
Where would you like to see the Beano go? Would you like? Are you guys happy with how things are? You said that sales are going up and people are still very popular. But would you like, I don't know, a movie? Or I know there's a kids cartoon as well. Where would you like to take the Beano?
Well, we now have a company called DC Thompson set up a company called Beano Studios in 2016. Which they're kind of the brand guardians. So they kind of take all the Beano characters, the comic, and all the content, and kind of try to kind of move it onto different platforms, like the cartoons, like the Beano.com website, which seems to be kind of enormously popular and kind of experiencing great growth as well.
Great.
And it's not so much a kind of taking characters or kind of taking a comic and just kind of changing the medium. It's very much kind of taking the essence of Beano, of mischief, and kind of the way things you do, and kind of presenting the different angles of that experience on different mediums where they're actually suited to that medium.
So would you like to see like a game?
So yeah, things like gaming. You can go on the website and you can play games like Escape from Bass Street, and I think there's a JJ one, which are getting kind of more sophisticated and more fun to play all the time. But obviously, it's not just kind of taking bits of comic strip and then putting it online.
It's taking the essence of it all. Yeah.
It's and kind of trying to see ways that it'll kind of work in those other mediums. So obviously we've got Dennis and Nash Unleashed, which I think is just been sold to Netflix in America. I think it's the first time Dennis and Nash has been sold into the American market.
There's Dennis in America, isn't there? That's a different thing, isn't it? Dennis the Menace here.
There's the little blonde boy in the dungarees who's America's Dennis the Menace, which is kind of why, in a element of pure coincidence, they were actually developed and launched in the same week.
Were they?
So they were developed concurrently, completely ignorant
mental.
of each other's development, and as a result, our Dennis the Menace isn't allowed to be called Dennis the Menace in America, and their Dennis the Menace isn't allowed to be called Dennis the Menace here.
It's crazy that they did two similar characters, both naughty kids, with the same, like Dennis the Menace. That's crazy.
Yeah, it's just
such a
pure chance. Yeah, I think at the time there was this music hall song called "Dennis the Menace from Venice," which is where I think certainly where George Mooney took the name from. That kind of ultimately led to the development of Dennis in 1951. And I can only assume that kind of the guys in America were listening to the
rolls
same
off the tongue. Yeah.
Okay, so bringing it back to sort of Shrewsbury and Comet Salopia, like, so you've been in Shrewsbury since Friday.
Yep.
Have you had a chance to walk around town, or have you just been back to back?
It's beautiful down here. It's I think. Not just kind of on the basic level of kind of having left kind of Scotland in the pouring rain, and you get down here and suddenly you step off the train and suddenly you have to take your coat off because it's very warm here. But no, it's a genuinely lovely town. I missed the riverboat cruise, which I'm a bit disappointed by because I was too busy. I was travelling myself, but the chance to kind of just wander around and kind of see the place. It's a beautiful market town with those cobble streets, and I think I might have seen similar kind of that black and white kind of architecture in York, say, on a day trip to York, but I've never quite seen it in such a small space as I have here. I think I'm staying in the Prince Rupert, which is this kind of weird kind of mock Tudor.
Prince Rupert's beautiful.
Ask to go on the cellar. The cellar is
the cellar.
Really spooky. If you like your spooky kind of, most haunted kind of places, ask to see the cellar. You could be like, I'm the editor from the Beano, and I demand to see the cellar.
I demand. Yeah. So I mean, the whole podcast is a community podcast, and we pride ourselves on our town. And that's the entire point. That's why Alex started the podcast, is because he wanted to basically give that a voice in a way. And yeah, I mean, so walking around town, what part of Shrewsbury that you've seen so far just stands out in your mind?
It's caught your eye.
Just caught your eye.
It's definitely those the black and white Tudor buildings.
Yeah. Well, Dad's always said to me, when you walk around Shrewsbury, look up.
Yeah, you have to look up. I think by chance I headed down a lane and came across the Harry Potter shop. Down this weird little lane with the really oppressive kind of buildings on either side where it was just like,
you know, I'd lived
it looks like Nocturne Alley, doesn't it?
Yeah, it did actually put you might have Diagon Alley down there.
I found that by chance as well. I've only lived this into 2017, and I was like, where does this go? And we found the Harry Potter shop. Yeah. It's fantastic. What's the Beano up to for the rest of the festival now? What have you got going on? You got more panels to do? You got more?
Well, we've got one more workshop with Laura Howell, who's the Mini the Minx artist.
Yeah, because you guys been at the library, is that right?
Yes, been based in the library all weekend. So Nigel Parkinson did a workshop this morning and also yesterday morning, and Laura did a workshop yesterday afternoon.
How's it been going? Is it lots of attention?
Pardon me?
Has it had lots of attention? Has it been going well?
Yeah. It was. It was really busy yesterday. There was loads and loads of kids about yesterday.
The sun was out. It was a good day. Yeah.
It was a bit quieter today, but you'd expect that with it being a Sunday. But all the kids seem to have really kind of enjoyed seeing Nigel, and I think he spent just as long kind of signing autographs and drawing pictures for the kids.
Did you have a chance to go into the library?
Yes.
Yeah, so you saw the kids stuff going on there.
Yeah. We've been literally based in the library.
Oh, was it? Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Rodan and Peppa, who do Peppa Pig, they've had the Peppa Pig costume character. So all the preschool, we've had loads of preschoolers in.
Yeah.
And they've been going to the Peppa Pig bit. And
I went in there yesterday and briefly, and I had a quick walk around and a look, and I was just gobsmacked with the amount of kids that were in there. All sat on the floor, all with pens and paper, heads down, and they were just scribbling away and drawing away. And I was like, that is amazing. And the fact that all these kids they're interested, they're inspired, they're all doing it. You know, you see so many kids nowadays, with a screen in front of their face for X amount of hours a day, and you don't see kids playing out in the streets anymore. You know, and it was just awesome to see that a pencil and a piece of paper, and they're drawing pictures, and like I used to when I was a kid, and I thought it was just amazing, absolutely amazing.
Yeah, so well done, thank you.
No problem at all.
Thank you for bringing that to Shrewsbury. It's been great. Been an absolute honour speaking to you. To speak to someone from the Beano, it's just crazy. Like, my mum right now will be like, oh my God. There was a lady lived next door to me, right? This isn't a weird story. It's actually quite sweet. I used to go, like I said, I used to go and get my Beano and stuff. And she had, she was a hoarder, right? And she had this stack like this of Dandy and the Beano, and she's like, I can't let you have them, they're my sons, but you can borrow them at like $5 a time. So I used to read like these really old versions of the Beano and stuff. It was crazy. So I've had that. It's amazing. So thank you so much for joining us.
Oh well, it's been lovely to come here and speak to you. So thanks very much.
No, thank you very much.